Yep,
All
so
right.
the meeting is being started. For
Okay, great.
Facebook Live.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to call to order the meeting for the Board of Appeals on December 16th, 2020. Our first order of business is going to be the approval of our minutes from the 10/29/2019 meeting. Keith or Judy, any questions or issues about the minutes?
No, I'll move that we accept the meeting minutes as presented for the October 9th, 2019 meeting.
Judy, would you like to second that motion?
Yep, I was.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes 3-0 for approval of the minutes. One, just in talking with just the semantics of this, typically at this time we would, with the meetings that we have, ask anyone who is going to be presenting to be sworn in. I don't think that we're able to do that logistically on the Zoom process, so I apologize. It's going to take a little bit longer before each individual will present. I will just have you swear in on an individual basis, so it take a little bit longer, but I do apologize about that. The first case we're going to hear tonight is case MABOA 202001, special exception request for home occupation in a licensed daycare business located at 708 Longbow Road. We do have the applicant on the line already, and what I would like to do is just swear you in now, Kelly. And again, I apologize, this will take a little bit longer than usual. Kelly, do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, would you like to present your case to the board? The minutes and the recommendation by the staff is on file, so anyone can look at it on the website. We're not going to read it in, but the floor is yours.
Oh, yeah. So my goal is I have 2 children already. I would like to take care of 8 children total in my home. So at this point, I would just be able to take in 6 more. So I would just like to be able to take care of children, hopefully from my neighborhood, and do that. That's pretty much all I'm asking for.
Okay. Keith or Judy, any questions you have for the applicant?
Do you have a cap on the number of students that you are going to try to deal with?
8 is the absolute total I can have.
So
No, we're good.
That's the total that you're allowed, or is that the total that you?
Well, because I have my 2 right now, so I would probably slowly bring in like 2 at a time, but my goal would be have 8 total.
Okay, but is that the maximum that you can have? Do you know?
Yes, 8 is the maximum that I'm allowed to have.
Okay. And the other question I have is did you run this through the HOA?
I had talked to the HOA because I had to purchase liability insurance also on my home. So there has been a quick email once, but we also have in my HOA, it's in the rule book that there's guidelines that I have to follow. So it's already been in there.
You have their approval?
Well, part of getting the approval from the HOA is that I have to get licensed. So I have to get this. I have to have the zoning in order to get licensed. Okay,
so all of these documents should go along with your application so that the town has that too, that you followed all of the regulations that go along with it.
So it's kind of a catch-22, like Kelly's saying. She needs this approval to be able to get the approval from the HOA. So it's like, so if you get the approval tonight, then we'll need your approval letter from the HOA so we can put it in our file.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just want to make sure that all of the documents are there so that, we're not missing anything.
Kevin.
Yes.
Just to let you know, I'm Peter. I don't know if we've met before. I replaced Brian about a year ago. You just
Oh,
haven't
okay.
met since then. So that's when I was asking Tom if 3 was a quorum.
I apologize.
That's
I thought
okay,
you
no
were the
problem.
board representative.
Nope.
Okay. Great. Welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Peter, do you have any questions at that
No,
point?
I do not. I read through the packet. I did not have any questions.
Judy, you're on mute. Do you have any questions for the applicant? I think she's delayed by 5 seconds.
She's on mute, though.
Sorry, my connection is very. Yeah, my connection's very, very bad.
Okay, if there's no
I'm not
other,
on mute.
okay, if there are no other questions for the applicant, or would anyone like to make a motion for this specific case?
I will move we accept it.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Motion and a second.
Yes, I second that.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I oppose.
Okay, 3-1. John, did you get that record?
I did, and I'm sure Deborah is logging in, and we also recording it. So Kelly, if you could, once you do have the approval, we'll get an approval letter out to you for your special exception. As soon as you get the letter back from the HOA, can you provide that to us along with your insurance letter, et cetera?
Okay. And do I also give you guys like my full licensing and everything from the childcare?
Yeah, any additional documentation would be very appreciated, and we'll keep it in our file so that if somebody comes in the later questions your liability or your abilities to have the daycare there, we can give them that information.
Okay.
All right. Good luck and happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Thank
Is
you.
there a hand raised, John, in the chat box?
There is. Thank you, Tom. Gina, can you let that person in? Thank you. Can you please caller unmute yourself?
I didn't see anybody else on here, which is the reason why I didn't ask for public
Okay.
comment.
That's okay. So, Kevin, if you go to participants and click on that, that'll bring up a panelist and an attendee list. So the person who's actually being brought into the meeting is 301-509.
Okay.
They can unmute themselves so we can hear them. They're going to have to press *9. I'm not sure, Gina, how to have them unmute themselves as a caller.
I don't know if you're referring to me. My name's Wade Gallagher, and I just tuned in. I'm not involved with or even interested in this particular.
Okay, wait, so that's fine. So if you can, we're going to take you off and we'll bring you back in later.
That'll be
Good.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the person at 301-509-2714 is off mute. Did you want to make a comment on this case?
That was actually Mr. Wade Gallagher. He is here for the next application.
Okay.
Right, but who's
He's
at the
on
phone
there
number?
in two different things, though. It's not Wade. I can see Wade, but there's also that number.
Right, I'm wondering who that phone number is.
Is that your number, Wade?
I don't see a number, so I don't know.
Your number, is it 2714?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that's someone else.
So 2714.
That's me.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. If you have a comment about this case for the.
No,
home
this
occupation.
this is my first time, and I'm in reference to Michael Berman's
Okay.
appeal.
Okay, that's for the next application.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize going out of order there. I just didn't see anybody else. So with no public comment, we're good for case number, approval of case BOA 2020-01.
Okay,
We just had another hand raised.
Rogers.
Yeah.
Roger, so you can speak.
Yes, Roger C. Dahlman. I would like to join the meeting, and I'd like to speak at some point. Name is
In
Roger
regards to-
Dahlman. I'm a resident of Wildwood Park.
Okay, that will be the next
Can you
case
hear me?
that we hear. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak in regards to case 202001, special exception for the home occupation of the licensed daycare?
No, thank you.
Okay. So, Kelly, thank you for your time. Good luck, and please provide all the paperwork to John when available.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, our next case is case MAA 1005. This is request for extension of expiration of a special exception at 1015 Ridge Avenue, Mount Airy, Maryland, also known as Wildwood Park, Section 5.
Section
Section 7.
I'm sorry, Section 7. I think that both attorneys were notified. We did receive a letter from Wade Gallagher representing the homeowners requesting a continuance of this meeting. What we're going to do is just hear Mr. Gallagher's argument. We're going to give the attorney a representation for the applicant to respond. The board will have a discussion and we will vote to either a continuance or proceeding with the meeting as planned, at which point it will be opened up to public comment. So, Mr. McGuire, you did receive the letter from the attorney representing the some of the residents?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Mr. Gallagher, would you like to address the board as to your...
Can we do one thing before we do this and just give just a little bit of background what this special exception was originally for?
Absolutely. And again, I think this would be just so all parties realize what this special exception was approved for and what is going to be discussed this evening. This original approval of special exception was to allow for senior housing on this location. There will be no discussion this evening about a structure. There will be no discussion this evening about traffic. There'll be no discussion this evening about anything aesthetically about this property. The only thing that we're here to do in this case is to hear a request and reason for an extension to provide senior living at this location. So I just want to be clear, if there is any other issues to be discussed, that is going to be stopped. This is a case that's been going on for over 10 years and has been extended for reasons for water availability. It's been extended for other reasons up to this point. So, Mr. Gallagher, we're going to give you the floor to talk about your opposition to this extension, and Mr. McGuire will give you an opportunity to respond. So
actually, it's the other way around, isn't it? Gallagher is requesting the continuance, correct, and McGuire is saying no.
Right.
Okay.
So Mr. Gallagher will go first.
All right.
All right. My name is Wade Gallagher, and this, I want to clear, I am not representing the Homeowners Association. I am representing selected people within that association. I cannot speak for the association, which is, of course, part of the reason.
Mr. Gallagher, could you speak closer to the phone, or you're very difficult to hear? I don't know if anyone else is having difficulty hearing you.
Kind of hard.
I'm using the audio on the computer, and I don't know what the issue would be. I'll try to speak louder.
Right there, you're fine.
Okay, I don't see a setting on the screen for increasing the audio, although I normally have one on my own screen. At any rate, what I said was, I wanted it to be clear, I am not representing the Homeowners Association as such. I am representing a few people who approached me and asked me to look into it. And when I did, I thought, not only do they have a cause that I think I can identify with, but I myself share their concerns. The last time I believe that this was up, was in August of 2017, 4 years and 10 months ago. So when we get a sign put up December 3rd in a rather obscure spot, as I showed on the photograph I attached to my letter, asking for another long extension, I started looking into it, started asking questions, and nobody within the homeowners association had a clue of what this was all about. Now, when you announced the hearing on December 3rd, I looked back and I saw one of the town's own guidelines referred, and I quoted that extensively in my letter, that the town had pointed out that where there's a COVID hearing anticipated, then perhaps it should be continued, time extended. Now, we have approximately 140 homeowners in our park here, and this project apparently is going to add 60 new residences, presumably 2-3 people. There's no conversation that I see about how many people are going in each unit, what the proposed square footage is, etc. If you look at the pictures that I submitted, some kind of excavation has already begun. I invited the board members, please come to the end of Promenade Lane and take a look. There's a lip of dirt 20-25 feet high along the road at the end of Promenade Lane. If you walk over that, you'll see a precipice that has been created in the last few, I think, weeks. I haven't seen it before I started looking in connection with this. It's about a 60-foot drop. Now, if they're going to begin construction on this thing, in any aspect of it, I think the people in the town of our park here have a right to know more about the details. These are old people. Most of them are in their 70s and 80s. They're not at all nimble with the computer. They can't go online. I am fairly nimble with the computer, and I went online. I had to call the office several times, speak to Mr. Clinton. I had to get actually a special connection to download the papers that are involved in this thing. They were not readily available. You go on the appeals website, Town of Mount Airy zoning appeals, and there's not a word about this project. There are words about other projects, but nothing about this. So then I called Ms. Clinton, and she said, "Oh, well, you have to hit agenda and meetings or something," which is not where I would normally go to look for information. And that's all I'm saying is, what's the rush? Why does this have to be discussed now? Time for the previous extension has already expired. Apparently, this board has the authority to kick it down the road 30, 60, 90 days, which I can see we may have to do in order to keep the extension alive, or the request for the extension. Or maybe you could do that by deferring the hearing, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, these people have a right to have a chance to look into it. There's no place they could meet. The community center has been closed for COVID. The library access is very limited. The people can't even meet in their own homes and talk about this and get together and decide what should be done. The notice that that has been brought to everybody's attention is dated December 3rd. And I'm told the sign at the end of Promenade Lane, which is a dead-end street, but there's 2 streets, which is about the most hidden place you could put the darn notice, was put there just about December 3rd, let's say a couple of weeks ago. So you're going into a community that's basically in lockdown. The old people have nowhere to go, nowhere to get together, nowhere where they could meet and talk. They don't have access to Zoom. Many of them are not at all agile on the computer. So I'm saying, what's the point of putting up the notice? You might have just, well, had the hearing and not even bothered to put up a notice. Because the notice was ineffective, totally ineffective. The people who have lived there see it, and when I lived there, I'm talking about 300 square feet of where the notice is. So this has been sort of a dead quiet issue for 4 years and 3 months. Now suddenly it comes to light that it's got to be brought to a head for another long extension in less than 2 weeks' notice. And I say this board is not being fair to the 140 homeowners who are going to could be literally swamped with this new development. There was a notice, mention in the notice about a meeting with the town and county officials, August 30, 2019, and it said to discuss possible solutions which have yet to be resolved. That was, what, 2 years ago, August 2019? Here we are 1 year ago, August 2020. So we're a year later, and we find out there was a meeting a year ago, and there was a discussion, and I can't find out what that discussion was about, and what are the possible solutions which have yet to be resolved? What are the outstanding issues? And in that same memo, the staff report referred to the plan that was received prior to the August 10 extension. So apparently the board itself was working on a plan that was received 3 years and 4 months ago. It hasn't been updated. So I'm saying, let's just step back, take a breath, and see where we are. I look at when I drive down the road there, coming out of Safeway this way, that road has traffic all day long, night and day. They have a big driveway there into this project. There's no sign, no symbol, no nothing at that one. So where do we go? We go with our sign around to two dead-end streets and put it in the corner. We have a picture of where the sign is. And if you're going to give notice to people, that's about the poorest place you could have put it on this 5 acres of property, unless you put it in the middle of the property. And what's the excavation that's going on now that has created this at least 60-foot precipice that anybody could just step off? There's no protection up there at all. Somebody went up there at night and had a couple of beers. They're going to walk right off, and there's nothing to stop them. And it's part of a path that was mowed religiously at the end of promenade that you could go up, take your dog, take your cat. And all of a sudden you're up there now, whoosh, gone. So what's the project that's being done now? And in any of these plans, I know that you're not getting into the details of the planning, but I've seen mention of 3 buildings with 20 each, 1 building with 60 each. I think
Mr. Gallagher, if I
I
could just have you pause for a second. Again, we're not here tonight to talk about structures, parking, traffic, none of that. The only purpose of this board to make a decision tonight is an expiring special exception will expire in 2 weeks. And
the question is, why can't it be extended until such time as the people in this area have a chance to look it over and see what it's all about? They may have taken the extension, they may not.
That's fair. If you could just pause for a second, give Mr. McGuire a chance to respond to your comments, and that will open up discussion for the board as to what actions we're going to take.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is John McGuire on behalf of Michael Berman Enterprises. And if I could just ask Mr. Gallagher one question before I address the board. I think we're entitled to know, Mr. Gallagher, who it is that you represent. You said a few people, but I think we are entitled to know who it is.
I haven't asked them for their permission. I will, as an attorney and member of the bar for some 50 years, tell you I have received a retainer to attend this meeting, and I'll be glad to disclose it to you privately. I'm not going to announce it in public without their permission. If that's a problem, Mr. McGuire, I myself am a homeowner in this park and can represent myself, but I have myself and other people.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm trying to understand who you're speaking for, and you're telling me you're speaking for yourself.
I'm telling you, I'm speaking for myself, and I have been retained by other people. And I spoke to the lady who is the chairman of the president of the homeowners association. She had absolutely no idea this was going on. She wants to schedule a meeting in January, if it's all possible, with the owners, with the people who do belong. Mr. McGuire, that's my complaint. You did not permit enough time to pass between putting up your sign and requesting the hearing. If you request the hearing in 3 months,
I think you've responded to my question. Mr. Chairman and board members, it just seems like Mr. Gallagher is addressing a much broader issue relating to the project, but the purpose of this hearing, as the chairman points out, has a very narrow scope. It's just about whether to extend the approval, and our request was for 3 years. The staff recommendation is, in fact, to grant an extension for 1 year. The public participation on many of these issues that Mr. Gallagher raises is still readily available as part of the site plan process. The meeting that was held in 2019 was really, as the board might gather, was not part of this Board of Zoning Appeals proceeding, but it was pursuant to the review of the site plan. There was, back in 2010, a well-attended meeting participated in by the public on the merits of the case. And at that time, the zoning aspect of the project was determined by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And of course, it has since been extended a few times. And that's what we're here about tonight, just to keep the scope clear. I don't believe, I don't know that we need to argue about this point, but I don't know that there is actually a notice requirement for an extension. Decisions have, full decisions and special exceptions obviously go through a rigorous notification and hearing process, but I don't see the same requirement for an extension. So my point being that the notice that was given and the property was posted on December 3rd really should be plenty of time to address the scope of this particular request. In terms of whether people know about the project or know details about the project, some of those arguments by Mr. Gallagher just don't hold up. I mean, there's a long history, well attended by the community before the Board of Zoning Appeals. There have been 3 extension hearings. There have been extensive planning commission proceedings, including that a hearing that led to the approval of a concept plan for the property. The town council adopted a special ordinance to address extensions in a generic fashion early this year because of the pandemic. And the public input will continue via the site plan process. So again, just to bring it back, there's a very narrow scope before the board this evening. There's no reason why the board cannot fairly decide the issue of the extension. Again, they're not deciding the site plan or the final site design or all the things that that go into the planning commission's determination of the final site plan. But what the board is being asked to do is to give the developer a chance to continue on with the approval that he earned in 2010. And, not to mention that there have been expenditures made to publish this, both on the part of the applicant, but on the part of the town. There have been efforts to get to this point. These Zoom hearings are not perfect, but they have become commonplace as a way for people to participate. So with that, I would ask the board to consider denying the request for continuance and moving on to the request for an extension. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for either Mr. Gallagher or Mr. McGuire from the board members before we?
I have a question for Tom. Is like if this extension runs out, what is the end result?
Well, the developer could reapply for the special exception, and it would all start all over again.
Does it negate everything?
Well, they would not have a special exception for a time. They would have to reapply for it. Now, it's a special exception that was granted back in 2010, meaning it met the legal requirements. Unless there are facts that have changed somehow, one presumes that they would offer the same evidence in support of the special exception application. So I guess that's the best way to answer it.
Yeah, and Keith, I think the question at hand is we have if I could ask John just a comment for this meeting is in your eyes, were all the requirements posted to move forward with this hearing today?
Yeah, so we did post the property. We also sent out adjoining property owner, anybody that adjoined that, any residents that were up against the back street there adjoining that property, they were sent out notice of the hearing way in advance. I think it was sent out in the middle of November. We also did post the property. It might have been on the 3rd. Again, I was out of the office due to an illness. And when I got back, that's when I put the sign up. I feel like we have taken appropriate steps. We did advertise in the paper. I didn't go door to door to everybody in the community there to let them know of the up and coming meeting. Besides that, I mean, I feel like we did do our due diligence. And as Mr. McGuire said, there is no requirement for us to do that. We do that out of the courtesy of trying to be civil with the citizens of Mount Airy.
Judy or Peter, any questions for the applicants?
I have one comment. So I went on to the DLLR website and looked at properties just on Marydale Boulevard. I didn't do all of Wildwood. And out of the 57 units that are on that road, 30 of them purchased their homes prior to 2010. And so they would have received 5 notices for this specific extension, the original one, and then 4 extensions. They would have already been hearing about this for 20 years. And of those 27 people who purchased their home after 2010, when you buy a home, if you use the Maryland contract of sale, it says in there to go look at the Planning and Zoning Office. If you have any questions at all about the land near you or any of the homes near you, you're supposed to go to the Planning and Zoning Office. They would have had that in their contract of sale that they would have agreed to. Plus, they would have had all of the extension notices given to them during that time. So it's not the first time that these people have heard about this. It's been going on now for 10 years. They would have known and heard about it several times already.
But still, when you say they had notice, Mr. Breeding's idea of notice is stick up with the sign at the end of 2 dead-end streets.
But they also sent out postcards.
This hearing tonight, I'm telling you, I told 10 people and none of them, and they live on most of them lived on Promenade, And they had no idea that the hearing was scheduled. They had no idea what it was about. And we're
I understand that, but
discussing it.
sir, it's also something that's been going on for quite some time, and we've heard about it many times already. We've also, they put it in the newspaper, which a lot of the senior citizens do read the newspaper. Even if they can't get on Zoom, they could have seen it in the newspaper.
And then if they go online to see what it's all about, they're gonna pull out their hair. But it took me 2 hours to get the staff here, meeting, report.
For those attending this meeting and are online listening to it right now, the simplicity of the purpose of this meeting is there is a special exception about to expire. An application was made to extend it. The extent of that extension is that this exception will allow this property to be used for senior housing. It's that simple. There's nothing more to it or nothing less to it other than that approval. Peter, do you have any comments before we as a board vote as to proceeding?
No,
with the hearing?
no, I do not. Judy, I was impressed by your pulling that up. That was great.
Thanks.
So, at this point, giving the background of the application, the notice to the community in the various ways, the decision right now from this board is, do we proceed with the meeting or entertain the continuance? Mr. Wade, please hold off. So at this point,
Someone asked to speak, Mr. Jackson.
again, at this point, the board is going to proceed whether or not we move forward with this meeting. I gave you a chance to speak and Mr. McGuire to respond. At this point, any discussion amongst the board as to whether or not we proceed with the hearing or entertain a continuance?
No, I think we can go ahead and continue with the meeting because it's not going to make any difference we're still going to be able to let the public come in and talk about the buildings, the traffic, all those other things that Mr. Gallagher brought up, which are valid points and valid concerns. But that isn't why we're here today. We're here to just say, can we extend this? And I agree that we should do that.
I think that, Wade has brought up a lot of very good points, but they are all planning and zoning issues.
Right.
And they really have to do with the special exception that we're asking, to address tonight. So I think all of those concerns, you should definitely make sure that you get all of the information so that you can attend the planning and zoning meetings and discuss it and bring all of those issues up.
Yeah. And that there will be a time for that, but this is not the day.
Kevin, we do
Yes.
have an attendee that does have their hand raised. This is Roger C. He came in earlier. I don't know if it's worth listening to him now, or do we want to wait till the actual hearing on the special exception extension?
Is he unmuted at this point?
Currently, it does not look like he's unmuted. So Roger, see if you can unmute yourself. And who has a smoke detector that's going off?
It's me. It started
back.
after
Now
we
I'm
started
muted.
the call. It's me. I'm going
Okay.
nuts trying to find it.
Judy, I am so glad it's you because I thought it was me and I can't find one. And
I was doing the same thing. I was checking every smoke detector. I'm like, oh my gosh, where is this coming from?
Everybody in my house is running around trying to find it and they can't find it. So
Roger, I see that you've unmuted yourself. I just want to get clarity as to your comment. Is it in regards to the continuance versus the hearing, or to make a comment during the actual hearing?
I'm getting a message that my interconnection is unstable, so sorry about that.
We can hear you.
Can't hear me because, let me unmute.
Nope, he just muted.
Muted.
So remute yourself, Roger. Okay.
We'll give him just a couple more seconds. And Peter, while we're waiting for Roger, do you have a comment in regards to, I heard from Keith and from Judy.
I don't see any reason why we should continue the hearing. I think we should go forward with the hearing. All the issues that were raised by Mr. Gallagher are, as Keith pointed out, those are all planning issues. And all we're doing is deciding whether or not Mr. Berman has a right to go to planning to raise those issues. So I
Okay.
think we should go forward.
Um,
And just actually, if I can just in terms of, and I just always want to make it disclosure here, as an attorney, I've had dealings with both Mr. McGuire's firm and Mr. Gallagher's firm. And I've also had, I can see that I've never done any work with Mr. Berman. However, I can see that Vanmar is involved in this, and obviously Vanmar's across the street from my office. So I've done some work with Vanmar over the years and some work for Vanmar over the years. So certainly doesn't affect any of my opinions in this matter. And as I indicated before, I think if you actually ask Vanmar, my years on the council, they probably found me pretty hard to work with. But I've never had dealings with Mr. Berman, who's the applicant.
So Tom, as a matter of process here, it seems like the consensus is to move forward with the meeting. Does this need to be voted on? An motion and a vote, or can we just proceed with the meeting as planned?
No, I would make a formal motion, whether it be to deny or grant the continuance, and then have a vote on that motion.
So Keith, Peter, or Judy,
I will move we deny the request for continuance.
Okay. I'll second it again.
Okay, a motion and a second to deny the continuance, proceed with the meeting as planned. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So 4-0 to proceed with the meeting. So at this point, we will proceed with the case for the request for extension bear with me for 1 second, for case MAA 1005. Again, I apologize for the process of not being able to see people and whether or not they're unmuted, but we'll start this with Mr. McGuire. Is it just you going to be representing the applicant in this matter, or will he be speaking as well?
I will be speaking for him unless there's a question where he needs to jump in and, help me out.
Okay. So at this point, John, I'm going to turn it over to you to present your case. Prior to that, do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. So
wait a minute. Is that directed to John Breeding, who is going to do a staff report?
No, that is to John McGuire, who is going to present on behalf of the applicant. The staff report has been online and for everyone's availability to review. It's not going to be read into.
Okay, Mr. McGuire does not need to be put under oath. He's making a legal argument on behalf of his client. Now, if Mr. Berman were to be called as a witness, certainly he would probably have to be put under oath and subject to cross-examination.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yep.
One thing I would like to do, Mr. Chairman, in light of that discussion is just, verify that the staff report and our request dated April 21st, 2020 is in fact part of the hearing record.
It is.
Okay, so I will more or less be summarizing that. We certainly agree with the rationale in the staff report. The only variance is that the staff recommends a 1-year extension, and we would respectfully request the 3-year extension, or I guess what would amount to about 2.5 years from now, since there's been this delay due to the pandemic. At the risk of repeating a little bit, the zoning aspect of the case as a special exception was, fully determined at a hearing on the merits with full participation. I think what you'll find is in the record is that Wildwood Park Section 7, which is the subject project, is really the natural progression, the final section of Wildwood Park that will complete the elderly housing community. So it's consistent with the master plan, it's consistent with the development, the local development plan, and that was all found by the board. And the neighborhood itself, the immediate community, really hasn't changed much. It's still an elderly, age-restricted community, and this still presents a different type of age-restricted housing that was actually something that the board looked favorable upon, and also that the planning commission looked favorable upon when approving the concept plan. The reason for the extension is not wholly unlike it was 3 years ago, in that this project has proven to have very challenging site design, including stormwater management, which is an item that goes between Carroll County review people and the town staff and the developer's engineer. And of course, all that has to be economically feasible at the same time. So meeting the wish list of the planning commission and also being able to manage the design in a way that's approvable has been a challenge, and it's worked on. You heard about the hearing from 2019, which involved representatives of county and town. That may have made some progress in the right direction, but it did not solve all of the issues. But nevertheless, the project itself, from a zoning standpoint, as a special exception, still stands as a valid proposal, and it needs more time. It's been pretty widely accepted, both with the board and its generous extensions in the past, with the approval of the concept plan by the planning commission. All lead to the conclusion that this is something that is desirable, but it has to be done the right way. So it needs more time for the design. Whether 1 year is enough, or whether 3 years is more appropriate, that's really hard to say. I'm sure that Mr. Berman would tell you that he'd love to be able to get this all done within a year, but also at the same time, we would prefer not to have to come back. This is a complicated project that not only has to go through approval, then it has to be financed and bonded in order to get a shovel in the ground, and all that takes time. So we would appreciate the board considering allowing more time rather than less. And with that, I think that the staff report pretty much speaks to the history. We don't need to repeat that, but we would appreciate the granting of the extension as requested for up to 3 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome. So at this point, we will open it up for public comment. I can't see when anyone's talking about raising a hand or unmuting, Deborah. So is there anyone on the line that would like?
It looks like we have two people have come on. Somebody in the 2714 is the last 4 digits. If they can unmute themselves. I don't know if Gina can unmute them when they come in.
Are they requesting to speak?
Yeah, they are. They raise their hands, and 2714, are you ready to go?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm on Midway Avenue here in Wildwood Park.
Ma'am, listen to Kevin for 1 second.
Could you please state your name and address before you comment?
Oh, certainly. My name is Nancy Pope. I'm at 702 Midway Avenue in Wildwood Park.
Okay, and I apologize for the inconvenience of this evening, but do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Of course, yes.
Okay, please proceed.
I would like to commend Mike Berman for the building that he did here in Wildwood Park, and whatever he would like to proceed to do to help our community here at Wildwood Park and our seniors. I'm with it 100%.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other?
Yes, we have somebody, 1492. If you can unmute yourself, you can speak. Go ahead. Please state your name and your address.
Vicky Stroop, 3596 West Watersville Road.
Vicki, do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Kevin, if I can actually ask one question here, and that would be just to Ms. Stroop, is that in town?
No, it is not.
Okay.
I don't think so. Thank you, Peter.
Go ahead. That was my one question. I didn't think that was just so we know we're not hearing from a town resident.
No. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
I would like to give Mr. Berman his 3-year extension. He's done a lot for the community and he deserves that from the town of Mount Airy. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and Roger C., I'm not sure if you did have your hand raised. I don't know if you can come back on if you have something to speak about. I don't see him raising his hand.
I don't see him on at all anymore.
There he is.
There he is.
Roger, if you'd like to speak, you can unmute at this time.
Gina, can you bring him in and remove the other two if possible? I don't see him re-raising his hand, so I'm thinking we can probably move on.
Yeah.
Is there
he needs
anybody
to
else on?
respond.
I'm sorry, Gina, go ahead.
Sorry, he needs to respond. I've allowed him to unmute, but he hasn't, so perhaps.
Are there any other participants that have their hands raised that we can go to while we're waiting for Mr. C?
We don't have anybody raising their hands currently.
Is there any Facebook comments? Or
No,
nothing?
there isn't.
Nothing?
There are people watching, but nobody's made any comments.
Okay. So I think we're probably okay.
Well, at this point, we've received, a public comment on this. We as a board have received staff recommendations to grant an extension for this for a 1-year period and 12 months. In conversations with John, I think this is more to, allow for us to, revisit this on a more timely basis. It has been 10 years. These hearings like this are not, knock on wood, in a year's time frame, it will be in person and can, continue to have the dialogue. But at this point, Peter, Judy, or Keith, do you have any comments, questions for the, okay, John, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I don't mean to interrupt, but to John's point about the 12 months, I was thinking 12 months from, when the extension from town council, their ordinance that was passed 2018, I think it was, ended at the end of this month. So I was saying 12 months from that point, because again, as he was saying, it's more of like 2.5 for his 3-year extension because it expired on June 1st, or in the middle of this past year or this year. So I could see possibly 18 months to really give him the 12 months to really get some kind of progression with the plan. That's why I limited it to 1 year, because I just want to make sure that we're getting plans. I've been with the town now for 2 years. I've yet to see a plan come in to our office for a review that's current or has changed from the previous extension. That's the reason why I was recommending 1 year, but it maybe has to be 18 months because that would take up the 6 months that has been lost.
You're recommending extension through January 1st of 2022.
Exactly.
Which is roughly a year from today.
That worked for me. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Keith, Judy, or Peter, any questions or comments?
I personally just, understanding this process and how long this process takes and all the approvals he has to go through, I personally don't have a problem with the 3-year extension that
I don't either.
that he's talked about. I mean, if you read back, a lot of the holdup was the town. It took us, we were very late in getting the master plan passed. And then we had water issues. So even though he had his approvals, he couldn't do anything for years anyways. And now he's shut down for who knows how long for COVID. I have no problem going with the 3 years and just seeing where it goes from there.
As an ex-realtor, I know these things take a huge amount of time, so I don't have any problem with 3 years either.
Can I be heard on that?
Yes, I was going to say, remember we have another attorney who's representing some parties apparently, who hasn't yet been heard on the substantive issue of special exception extension.
I believe Mr. McGuire went a little afield in describing all the things they were doing and had been doing. I would ask Mr. McGuire if he can tell me what that cliff is that has been created in the last short little while on this lot they're talking about redoing.
I can speak to that. So Mr. Berman does have a grading permit that's through Carroll County for stockpiling of excess dirt. Currently, he is meeting all Carroll County codes for the removal of that dirt and the transfer of that dirt to another location. So he has the right to be able to move the dirt on his property. And he is going through all the soil conservation and all of the county approvals to do such.
If someone looked at that and said, gee, it looks like they've already gotten started on the construction for this site by removing the dirt and getting it ready.
And that's incorrect. And due to the sign this up, you were saying the issues about getting the Zoom invite earlier. There is a telephone number there that they can call and get access to whatever, to me, to Deborah, to anybody with the town. But yeah, so the grading issue, he has the complete authority to do that through the county, who is our controlling agency at that respects.
We should go look at it from the top of Promenade. Dangerous.
I will, and I'll visit that after the snowstorm's over. I'll be in the office probably tomorrow afternoon, and I will ride out there and look at it. If there's a safety issue related to that, Mr. Berman, maybe he needs to put up some kind of fencing at the top of the hill there. If there truly is a cliff, as you call it, and I'll investigate that as soon as.
Along the road from the Safeway, you'll see it. You hardly have to get out of your car.
Okay, I'll do that.
What I'm saying is fine. This has been kicked down the road, and what we're doing is having a grandfather clause. Go back 10 years. It was done 10 years ago. Everybody's hunky-dory. Why can't you do it for 1 year, as Mr. Breeden suggested, and that will give the people at Wildwood Park a chance to get up to speed because they aren't up to speed. Your own director suggested 1 year. I suggest 1 year. There's no reason they can't come back. He said he still hasn't gotten a plan from them for years. Maybe they could get their plan together and give it to Mr. Breeden in less than 3 years.
Mr. Wade, can I ask you a question, or Mr. Gallagher, can I ask you a question? When you say getting people up to speed,
I'm sorry?
You said like giving people a year to get up to speed. The purpose of the special exception is that this property is going to be utilized for senior living.
If you consider 55 years old senior living, you're behind the times. But I mean, I understand that's how it was approved to begin with. 65-year-old people have kids in college and high school who I guess are going to be living down there and coming down Promenade Lane to get thither and yon. But anyway, why not 1 year?
Keith, you haven't commented as of yet.
Well, I agree with John. breeding, 18 months basically, because I mean, he needs at least a year, to deal with it, because things don't move very fast in the planning, unfortunately, and I am not opposed to the 3 years either, because this is just a special exception. It has nothing to do with the planning issues that, are on this particular site.
Mr. McGuire, as you see, going back, there's a gap between the 1 year and 3 year. What is a realistic time that you and Mr. Berman would be able to submit a plan to the town?
Well, that's a harder question than you might imagine, because it's not just about submitting a plan. A plan could be submitted at any time. It's resolving some of the technical engineering issues so that when the plan goes in, it's going to address, comments. It's going to satisfy the county stormwater management review. So, that's why we're looking for more than a year, because that takes time. The actual filing of the plan, I know that John Breeding mentioned that, but I think he also knows that there really wouldn't be any justification to file a plan that just for the sake of filing it. It needs to be designed, which is a very challenging and sophisticated process, even on a regular case. And this one has some unique issues. So actually, I guess we've asked for 2.5 years, because we've asked for, when we asked for 3 years, but that would go through July 31st of 2023, which is the date we asked for. I've heard 18 months. I find that confusing, because nothing really got done during the pandemic. I mean, things are starting to pick up a little bit, but that's just lost time. So I don't know that should be charged against us. So I'm not sure whether we're talking about 1 year from the end of this month, 18 months from the end of this month, or our hope would be July 31st of 2023.
Yeah, the staff, to be clear, the staff recommendation is January 1st of 2022.
Yes,
So-
it is. It is, but then I heard Mr. Breeding say 18 months, and that confused me a little bit, because I don't think that we'd be charged. If he felt it was going to take us 18 months to get this done, then I don't think we should be charged for the past 6 months where things had kind of come to a stop everywhere.
And that was my fault. Like you're saying, the 18 months, I was just sort of going against my staff report, but I think I'm going to let it back to the Board of Appeals, because they're ultimately the ones that make the final decision.
I mean, it's just observation, and based on the comments from the board members, I think that it sounds like there is an agreement to grant the extension. I just think we need to have a very brief dialogue in regards to the time duration of this, given the fact that it's been 10 years. John is requesting it not to expedite it, but just make sure that the project is still moving forward, and realizing it takes time. So, we have a range of a year from basically today to 2.5 years that has been requested.
Well, 2.5 years goes basically to what their date is, isn't that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
So that would be July 31st,
2023.
2023, right?
Right.
Yes.
Kevin, maybe just to move things forward, I will start with a motion that we
Okay.
grant them the extension to July 31st, 2023. And then at least we've got something on the table.
Yep.
That's a
Are you
motion?
seconding that?
That's a motion.
You put that on as a motion?
Yes. So it needs a second.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
So there's a motion and a second. If there's no other discussion, Judy, you're nodding your head. So to take a vote, all those in favor of extending the special exception to July 31st of 2023, say aye.
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 Any opposed? 4-0, John. And
All right. That concludes tonight's meeting ultimately.
All right.
Thanks everybody's participation. And
If I could just, again,
Thank
I
you.
don't know that we're gonna be sitting down doing this 3 years from now, or 2.5 years for that matter, but, I don't know if Mr. Berman's on the phone, but Mr. McGuire, if you would convey it, clearly there's some information that would be needed by this community. There's uncertainty. There's probably been a lot of turnover in that facility over the past 10 years. As a course of doing this, you clearly had people come on and praise the work you've done. Looking forward to the work you will do. Just maybe use this as an opportunity to reintroduce yourself to the neighborhood and make them aware of what you're doing, not because you have to, but it'll avoid instances like this in the future.
Okay.
Appreciate your help.
I will be glad to pass that along to Mr. Berman. I think he is fairly involved in the community. And as you say, there's still a site plan process to go through, and that is, involves the community as well. So I think on a couple of different levels that will happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to offer Mr. Berman the opportunity to address the people in Wildwood Park at their civic center when it opened and tell them exactly what you do envision, Mr. Berman, because they can't get on the computer to find out. It would be a big help for them to know what it is. They don't know whether it's 3 buildings, 1 building, going to be a skyscraper, or what. So it would be extremely helpful if you could do that and bring them up to date.
And like I said, I made the request. Hopefully, the vaccines and a lot of other opportunities will present themselves into next year, and that would be allowed, Mr. Gallagher. So, do we need to do anything else, Tom or John, before adjourning the meeting?
Nope, not from my perspective.
Okay.
All right, I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time. Be safe.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.